Hello, hello. Okay, so we are here with another series of our Unfuck Your Body. We are going to be doing the upper back. I know that's backwards for you guys. I'm sorry. Can't fix that. So we are doing the Unfuck Your Upper Back today. Very closely related to the lower back and hugely related to shoulder mobility and shoulder capability when working out. So we are going to wait for our Dr. Arnika to chime in here. If you did not get a chance to go to my profile and check out the special tests that I posted, they are shoulder special tests, but they are very closely related to your upper back, and this is what we're talking about today, the upper back. So go there, do the special tests. Send us the videos, see if we can, so that we can review them and give you some feedback. I already had somebody chime in and send me some videos of them doing the special test, and I was able to give them a little bit of feedback. So we need you to send us the things. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning, Ty. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little, it's a frantic morning. I think you've been having a frantic morning too. So that's fine. I blame the weather. A little rainy here. So we are talking about the upper back and how closely related it is to the shoulder, right? So a lot of times people don't think so much about their upper back because it's kind of like, it doesn't really, like the lower back, hurt you so much, but it really has a huge effect, right? And all this tension that you feel in your neck and just these little things, like a lot of it has to do with T-spine mobility and range. And if you don't have it, you need to address it, right? So where are we going to start? Is it fucked up? All right, so how do we assess if your T-spine is in fact fucked up? What do we do?
So one of the first things I do with clients is taking them through rotation. And I take them through that standing up, have them feet together, rotate to one side, and I see how far they can rotate, looking like hips up. But the biggest thing I do is called a lumbar lock. So I put them in a position that takes their lumbar out of the equation or their low back out of the equation. I have them put their hand on their low back, and then I have them rotate. And I see if they can actually rotate from their T-spine, or how many people are compensating and trying to rotate with their low back. So taking that lumbar, that low back out of the equation, and see how that rotation and mobility looks.
Yeah, because they're separate units, right? And the compensation, it's gonna come from somewhere. We talked about that before on other series where your body's gonna figure out a way to get it done. But is it, like, are you compensating in a way that is causing harm? And just discerning whether your rotation is coming from the lower back or from the thoracic spine is a huge, huge, huge component. If you're locked in that thoracic spine, what do we need to work, right? So yeah, rotation, and then extension, right? Can you stand up straight? Can you get that from your T-spine? And again, it's disconnecting the lower back from the upper back, right? Like, how do we do that? How do we test thoracic extension?
So something that I have people do, whether it's over a chair, if they're having that big of an issue trying to disassociate between that, is having them bring their arms behind their back, elbows close together, and see that they can extend up like that, and looking at the back and seeing where they're trying to extend. Most people don't know that we're supposed to or even can extend in our upper back, and they think they're doing it, but everything's coming from their lower back, and they're just compressing more on that back and disc.
Yeah, because even if you just look at the back, right? We have the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, and then the lumbar spine, right? So
yes, we do.
Boom.
Are you a chiropractor without a spine model?
So it is rounded out like this, but it needs to have the capability of opening up. And if you are lacking there, then that is something that you need to address, because just because it looks like that doesn't mean it can't straighten out. We need to be able to straighten that out, and not at the expense of just arching the lower back. That is a common compensation, and you need to be able to connect with your body enough to figure out whether you are in fact compensating. I have it noted later on that all the exercises that you do in order to fix these things have to be done correctly and with intention. Otherwise, you are either exacerbating the problem or just not fixing it, right? So,
exactly.
All right, so thoracic extension, thoracic rotation. And what about shoulders? Should we test out the shoulder range of motion?
Oh, definitely. Specifically, just like your
Don't roll
videos
your eyes at
on
me.
your back. Definitely on your back. I'm thinking about people just don't correlate the shoulder to the upper back and how a good chunk of it relates to our scapula and how that's riding over that rib cage at that position. So my favorite thing is putting people who are throwing weight over their head, putting them on their back and having them try to raise their hands to
Right.
the floor. And all you see is that arch coming up off
Yes.
their back because they can't
Or an
extend.
inability.
Yep, yep.
They just can't. Jess, I see you're on here. This is the woman that sent me videos, and yes, we need to address the fact that if you cannot passively or actively raise your arms overhead, then you should not be throwing a barbell overhead, or in fact dangling from a bar, and certainly not exposing yourself to kipping pull-ups and things of that nature, right? Like, you are forcing your body into a position that it cannot naturally get into. Compensation will happen, pain will develop, and you're going to be like, I don't understand. Well,
Right.
your
Why does my back
body
hurt?
did not have the ability, right? So don't force it into a position that it cannot naturally go into. Work on getting that range first, right? Modify until you get there. Landmine presses are great. They're a great, great way to start accessing that position. Okay, so shoulder range of motion is huge, not just in flexion, but in abduction, to just see if you are capable of that range. It might be something else. It might not be your T-spine, but there are ways to, like, address it by addressing the T-spine. So, and then the scapula, right? We were going to talk about the scapula. Obviously, it has a lot to do with the shoulder, but also if you have a limited thoracic extension, probably going to have limited scapular movement, right? Like, it just
Right.
doesn't come to play as much because it's just gotten used to being stuck in this rounded position, right? So you need to make sure that your scapula is able to move through protraction or retraction, and then downward rotation, which a lot of people really, really, really lack. So testing out whether your scapula is moving as well. And then breathing.
Breathing is huge. Something I've been harping on, I guess I can't even say all week because it's already Wednesday, but people, if they're breathing with their chest, because I feel like I talk about it every day, if they're breathing with their chest and their diaphragm, breathing with our chest causes us to recruit the muscles, the scalene to muscle that attach from our neck to the top of our scapula, that now those muscles are doing this work here, that their main job, which should be helping us pull those scapulas down and back, depending on what position our shoulder is, they're not doing their job. So
Right.
now those shoulders are most of the time elevated up because of our breathing.
Right. And then what happens if you add exercise to something like that, right? Like, so if you can't breathe in a calm, comfortable position, you add intensity or load and some type of stressor, and now you're trying to breathe through that. Your body is going to default to not doing it properly, right? And so then, yes, you get all this tension in your shoulders, or you get compensation, and you're just not sitting in positions that you should be. And it all comes back to, can you breathe properly, right? Breathing is just, it's so hugely important and so
Yeah.
it's not respected. It ain't
It's
respected
not.
enough,
It is
right?
not. I did a post about this yesterday. I'm like,
Yes.
if whoever you're working with, I don't care who, whatever movement professional across the board, if someone hasn't given you some type of exercise or talk to you about breathing, I need you to see someone else because you
Yeah.
need to breathe.
And it needs to be first.
Exactly.
It needs to be right away. And
Right.
and I could probably do a better job of this, just forcing people to keep it up and keep it up and keep it up. I do introduce it in focus, but it's just, you need to keep doing it because there are so many patterns that you have developed throughout your life. Breathing is one of them. If you're not breathing appropriately, then you need to go back and start from the beginning, and you need to think about it all the time. But yes, I just had a client the other day. I had her show me her breathing patterns, and the very first thing I saw was, with every inhale, she went here, right? And I was like, oh yeah, like, we're gonna have to fix that. But there are postural issues that we need to deal with and everything. So I'm starting to put the pieces together. But yes, the breathing, just her showing me how she was breathing, I was like, great, that's one of the problems. Let's put that on the list of things to fix, right? So
Yeah.
breathing is just going to have a huge impact on how your body sits throughout the day. And then add load, we got to fix that. All right, so we need to move on. We did assessment, shoulder range of motion, extension, rotation. Is it independent of the lower back? Can you breathe properly? There's also, can your head rest on the floor? right?
Yes.
When you're laying down on your back, if it is uncomfortable for you to then get your neck in line with the rest of the spine, that could be coming from your thoracic spine, right? Could be cervical, but it could be coming from the thoracic spine. You have this forward head posture, and now you're losing the ability to get your ears over your shoulders. That needs to be hugely addressed.
Yes.
It needs to be really high up on the priority list. If you cannot lay on your back and comfortably rest your head on the floor, you need to put that to the top of the list, because that only gets worse with time, right? Your dome just keeps pulling you forward. And as you age, you start losing the ability to then get into that position.
Right.
Once that's gone, it's pretty much gone, right? Your bones are going to start settling. You're 65 years old. If you can't pull your head back, you're not going to be able to fix it by then, right? So we need to address it now.
Right.
All right, so that was the last one. Unfucking it up. How do we unfuck it up? What do we need to do, Dr. Arnika?
Biggest ones I love are the Y's, T's, and what? W's? I's? Yeah.
I call them I, Y, T.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go down here.
Just make
all the letters.
All the letters, exactly. We focus so much on through our day-to-day routine, our traps, specifically our upper trapezius, our upper traps up here take on a lot of our attention. And some people don't know that we have two other parts of that same muscle that never get worked. So making sure that we do things around that involve us opening up and just honestly starting to be aware without weight, and just being awareness of our muscles in our back and how to engage them and use them.
Yeah, how to disconnect one part and engage the other part. That's a huge thing that I focus on with people and this is one of those, you have to do these movements correctly. So don't just go to YouTube or Instagram and be like, oh, this is totally what I need. You need to understand the why behind it, right? When we raise our arms, naturally, we're going to be like, yeah, I got it, right? But we want to be able to downwardly rotate the scapula, really set that shoulder and lift in a way that the scapula is stabilized and that our upper back and our chest is in a position that allows for this range. If we just keep going like this, we're not developing that positional awareness and that strength, right? So when you do the I's, the Y's, and the T's, first of all, don't be doing no I's if you don't have that range of motion yet, right? You got to earn that.
Yeah.
But when you do them, you have to make sure that you set that shoulder and then work within the range that you can control, constantly thinking about not slipping out of position, because your body is going to default to using these really strong upper traps. They're really strong. Don't need to strengthen them. They're strong. Let's try to disconnect them. They will be able to do the work when they need to do the work. So let's disconnect them and use those middle and lower traps. They're so important. So yes, strengthening is huge. What about mobilizing? How do we get into that position before we even start strengthening? Like, what's a good,
we can do some T-spine extension, on Ty's page, one of her videos, I think you were over, I think it was a medicine ball.
Oh yeah.
Is it a medicine ball? Yeah, over a med ball. But it can start as simple as rolling over a towel. Some of you have a foam roller, but just being comfortable and getting into thoracic extension and taking a couple breaths there. We have to be able to just get in that position before we do anything else to try to add load.
Yeah, and we want to comfortably get into those positions. So if you are trying to access these positions, and whether it's a peanut, there's that tennis ball that you have, I like to put that between the shoulder blades, a foam roller, a pillow, something, but do not push to the point of pain, right? Slight discomfort is okay, but you need to be able to breathe and allow the body to adapt in these positions. So just going blindly into these positions is not going to serve you. You have to move slowly. You have to move through the entire T-spine as well. So a lot of times I see people just put it in one spot and then they just go back and forth, and I'm like, well, you might be missing the spot where you're really restricted at. So I like to tell people to use at least 3, 4, maybe 5 positions along the upper back, like it can be right below your shoulder blades, middle shoulder blades, a little bit higher, and then a little bit higher. Go through that range, because you might find spots throughout your T-spine that you are more or less restricted in. Right?
Right.
If you don't feel like you're restricted, move on to the next spot, right? There's going to be a point where it's just a little bit worse for you. But yes, the breathing through it and allowing your body to just understand that this is a safe position
That's the biggest thing. Being okay to your body say, okay, I'm safe to be in this position. I've been talking about safety with my clients for a while. Your body has to feel safe in these positions. And if you can't breathe in it, it doesn't feel safe.
Right. Exactly. If your body reacts, right, like that takes time. If you get a burning sensation or something, right, you might be impinging on a nerve. You got to relax. You got to just chill out. So yeah, if moving slowly is the way that you can accomplish that, and you can stay within the range that you can control. Too fast, you don't even know if you slipped into a position that you don't have. Okay, so thoracic stretches, making sure that that is not coming from the lower back. Again, we're going back to do these correctly, or don't bother doing them at all, right? Like, so just you're just going to compound what is the problem if you slip into positions that you're not supposed to be in. So getting your thoracic extension from your lumbar spine is is defeating the purpose. So, yes.
Leading more to injuries.
Exactly. So we got to make sure that we slow down and we do these right. All right. What about thread the needle?
Yes. Thread the needle is one of my favorite positions. And I like yours too, because we did it. I did it yesterday in my warm up for focus. I was like, I did do that. But threading the needle, making sure we get some type of rotation and mobility in here. So I like having that arm up and then coming right through. Some people like to drop that shoulder down. Either way is fine. But I like threading the needle like that. And I also like yours when we're on our back and kind of that open book position.
This is one of my favorites. I find that this one is just really, really accessible, especially if you are feeling pain in the moment, right? It's very easy for you to control. You lay down on your side. A lot of these are on my YouTube channel. And if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go to It's Just Thai Training, but I have a ton of videos on there. Spinal rotation, I think I have like 5 videos on there, but laying down on your side and opening up is one of the easiest ways. And if you need to shorten that lever arm, you can just keep the arm bent. If you get a little bit more comfortable, you can open up all the way, but it's one of the most, one of the safest ways to start accessing that rotation. But yeah, rotation, just getting into these positions and challenging the thoracic spine to get into the range that you feel like you're lacking, right? You will start noticing, and you'll start noticing that one side might be more capable than the other. So then don't overstretch the side that already has a lot of range. What you need to do there is decrease that differential, right? Like you want to make sure that you open up the side that is therefore then lacking, okay? So we don't need equal time spent stretching on both sides. Get that out of your head. Just like we don't need equal time spent strengthening on both sides. If one leg is stronger than the other, you got to pick up that weaker leg, right?
Right,
so,
exactly. I'm like,
yeah, too many times. And I'm at fault because I'm OCD and I'm like, well, I did 8 reps on my right. I got to do 8 reps on my left, but that's not always the case. Okay, so strengthening, scapular strengthening as well, right? So we need to make sure that we are addressing that scapular positioning. So can you protract and retract? Scapular push-ups, scapular pull-ups, scapular rows. Can you get that movement? Scapular circles, right? Like these are all ways to start moving that scapula and make sure that it is moving in conjunction with your thoracic spine, right? And with your pressing patterns, can you control that scapula? I do not want to see you lifting with the shoulder first and then pressing through that range. That is a huge compensation. It will lead to elbow pain, wrist pain, vice versa. It will mess you up. So let's make sure that we can pack that shoulder and keep it down as we're going through these ranges. Pull-ups, push-ups, anytime you're pressing, pulling. Supermans, hugely important for thoracic extension. Again, often done incorrectly, right? So where do we want the Superman to come from?
We don't want it coming from our low back.
Not from the
I get a lot
back.
of this. Right. We don't want it coming from our low back.
Yes. And if you find that Supermans are painful, what we just need is an extension. So there's bird dogs. Bird dogs are great. Can you get into this extended position? But the Superman, you want to make sure that your hips are locked down. And if it has to be half of a Superman, where you keep your feet on the floor and you're just lifting from the upper back, that's fine. But be very conscious of shoving your hips down into the floor and locking in that pelvis so that the movement is coming from the upper back and not from the lower back. Okay. And I cannot reiterate enough. Do them correctly or don't do them at all, right? Make sure that somebody sees you. Send us the videos. We'll give you the green light, or we'll say, nope, that's not how you do it, right?
Exactly.
There's also on my YouTube, the spinal rotation with the pull apart. This one's really, really good. It starts challenging that rotation. You take a band and you take it with you through that rotation. It's such a good one for developing strength through that range and stability. Can you control that band as you're going through that range? So go to the YouTube channel and find these exercises, but make sure that you let us assess you first, because not just finding these exercises and doing them might not be specifically what you need, right? So that's why the assessment part is so important.
It's super important. I feel like it's time. I think it's great. Kudos to those who are looking at the videos and going to go do them. But at times that's not where you need to start. And maybe that's not your issue. So the assessment is going to help tremendously and figure out where your problem is.
Exactly. Yeah. Assess, assess, assess. And you can test and retest, right? Like maybe you do want to do self-assessment. Fine. Test. Do some of these stretches, do some of these exercises, and then retest. Are you on the right track? That's a good way to do a little self-assessment. Don't just blindly do these exercises. Go back and then retest. Did you have some immediate change in sensation, change in range of motion? If you did, then you're probably on the right track. If not, then we're not attacking the right thing. Okay?
Definitely.
All right, so how do we not, and then not fucking it up. So how do we unfuck it up? Another thing that we need to do is eliminate irritation, right? So if you cannot reach overhead, what should we stop doing?
Reaching overhead.
Right, especially with load, okay? Reaching overhead and dangling from a bar. I cannot state this enough. Too many people approach these exercises and these moves too quickly, and then irritation happens, and then pain happens. Now you're fucked. Okay, so in part of treating it, you have to eliminate that irritation. Let the body calm down. Let your body learn a better way to do these exercises. All right, so
and being okay with regressing backwards. Like some of the issues that no one wants to do these regressions. Maybe they're not sexy exercises. I have no idea, but they've been doing these pull-ups, whatever, on this bar for X amount of time, and telling someone that, hey, we got to regress this back. We got to take out the load. Let's take off some gravity. I'm going to put you on your back. That's okay, because once we go back to the basics and be able to control those muscles, those kipping push-ups or pull-ups aren't going to feel like shit, because we've waken up and been aware of that one micro change we needed to make.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and for me, it's the training lifespan, right? I don't want to do this for the next 5 years. I want to do this for the next 40 years, right? So what do I need to do now in order to allow me to live a longer training life in the gym and with the heavy barbells, right? So if you need to give up 6 weeks, 6 months, who cares, right? Because that's going to give you 20 years on the back end of your training, right? So do it now before it's a bigger problem, before you need to go under the knife, before it develops into something else. Like, it's just so worth addressing it now, right? It's a blip on your training life cycle. Okay, so just get that in your head. I know I can't plug that away enough. All right, so how do we not fuck it up again? Postural awareness. Right? How important is this?
It's super important, super important. I noticed that some people just don't have the muscles or the strength or control to hold themselves up. And that's how we started using a lot of the aids with our chairs and leaning on this. And we need all this lumbar support because we don't have the tools. So after doing a lot of this thoracic stuff, you'll be able to hold yourself up longer in this erect position because you have that ability to extend your thoracic spine. So posture awareness is huge. And once you get this mobility happen in your spine, the last thing we want to do is go back into this rounded flexion position after we've done all that work, all that breathing through that pain in order to open it up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you just spent 6 months teaching your body how to sit in a better position. If you spend the next 15 years sitting at your desk like this, I mean, you might as well just start all over again all the time, right? So yes, postural awareness and being able to be, okay, where is my head in relation to my shoulders? What's going on with my abs? Where are my hips? It all correlates. And if we spend 18 hours a day sitting like this, it doesn't matter what you do in the gym, right? The posture and your awareness of where you are in space is going to have a much bigger carryover than anything you ever do in the gym. So postural awareness is huge to maintaining the positions that you have just learned to be in. Just do it. Just be conscious of it all the time. All right. And then proper breathing, making sure that when we do reintroduce high intensity, heavy load, we don't just default to old breathing patterns, right? Like the breathing is going to be huge. We need to make sure that we can carry on this proper breathing with high intensity, because that's a huge, huge, huge default. People breathe poorly.
Yep.
And about reintroduction to sport. It's got to be slow.
Yes. I was working with this. I'm working with this freshman. No, she's a junior tennis player. Our kids have been sitting down. They've been experiencing the same pains that a lot of these parents are with, sitting in a computer around its shoulders. And now getting back into sports and getting back into like running around and playing tennis, her body is fucked. Yeah. Because we've been we're now been sitting in these flex positions, and now we're about to make these fast extension and flexing exercises, and it's going to lead to injury. So we got to slowly make sure that we're building that foundation to introduce ourselves back into whatever sport and activity we want.
Yes. I mean, and same for everybody that has been working out at home or with a set of dumbbells or kettlebells, or maybe they haven't dangled from a bar in a year. And then now the gyms are opening up and they're like, woohoo! And you might feel fantastic because whatever irritation you had a while ago because you were doing so many pull-ups or barbell presses or whatever, that's gone because you have rested it. But now if you go and just reintroduce that explosive movement, you're going to be setting yourself up for injuries. So the reintroduction to sport is huge. You got to think about the long term. How do you reintroduce it slowly? Like just drip it out, use it as your warm up first, and then do some strength, and then maybe add intensity. But you got to drip it out slowly so that you don't fuck yourself up on the way to reintroduction of sport. And then maintaining. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that we got to make sure that we add in pulling. Yes. We do so much pushing and flexing, and we're working on everything in the front, but very rarely do we do any pulling exercises. So we definitely can incorporate like Y's and T's, and that stuff is great. But once we get up and we want more load where we're going to the gym, things like bent over rows, certain things that we need to add in pulling motions because we're doing so much pushing.
Yeah, and that's what we should have talked about this in the assessment. But yeah, you're either really strong in pushing patterns or really strong in pulling patterns, right? And most people will favor one over the other. But yes, I see all these like push-up challenges and burpee challenges and all these things that you can do with body weight exercises. Most of it is going to be a push, not a pull. You have to counteract that with the opposing muscles. And so yes, making sure that your coordinated pattern is just as good on the pull as it is on the push, and vice versa. Most people will lack in one way or the other, and you have to make sure that that is balanced out. But yeah, the reintroduction of sport, making sure that all of that is in sync. Too many push-ups will fuck you up. Too many pull-ups will fuck you up. It's got to be in conjunction. They have to be equal. But yeah, and then maintaining the rehab exercises, right? Your body will default, right? It's been working a certain way for a very long time, right? So if it took you 6 months of rehab exercises to get to a particular point and constantly hammering away at these, you can't just ignore those now for the rest of your life, right? Yes, you might feel better and you might be moving better, but you still have to address these. So throw them into your warm-ups, make them part of your routine. You might not have to hit them as often as you did in order to get better, but you got to make sure that they're still in your weekly programming.
And you'll notice how much different your workout feels. Like I know it doesn't matter what workout we're doing that day on your focus program. I always start off with like those scapular reaches, putting a peanut in between my shoulder blades. It's because I feel better when we're doing anything overhead that day. Right. Now that range is back, I can control, I feel where my shoulder is. Like I'm still working on my own stuff. So I feel my awareness, and now I'm like, cool, I can now do these Ys a lot better and control for my body. So you'll notice that doing this 5-minute, couple-minute mobility or whatever routine improves your workout that day tremendously. And it makes me feel better because I don't know about you guys, but it sucks when I'm like, I can't do this. But now I do. I'm like, hell yeah, I can do all the Ys in the world. So a couple minutes before, you'll be surprised on how much better that workout routine will feel. And
it doesn't need to necessarily be for a full-on workout, right? Like, say it's a rest day or whatever. Say you're going to be sitting in the car. You got to drive to Tahoe. You're like, you know what? Let me just do my shoulder exercises really quick. It just takes 5 minutes. Or say you got a bum knee or a lower back, right? Take the time, 5 minutes. It's literally just 5 minutes. Dial in exactly what you need, what works, what feels good, and then keep those up because your body will default to positions. It just will. We all do it. And if you don't counteract that regularly, you're gonna start developing those problems all over again. So in order to not fuck it up again, just stay on top of it, right? We all want to be very, very, very proactive about our treatment and not reactive, right? Like we want to be able to get it before it's a problem and to address it regularly so that we don't have to then have to address it, right? Like let's just stay on top of it. It's like cleaning your house, right? If you tidy up frequently, then you don't have to, you know, spend 3 hours on a Saturday morning cleaning your house, right? Same thing, right? Clean house, make sure everything stays in line, keep addressing the problems, stay on top of them before they become bigger problems, right? All right. What else, Doc? What you got for the people? What's coming up through you for the spine?
What is coming up? What are we working on? Neck? It's next week, neck?
Next, I was gonna go to shoulders, but we need to go
shoulder. We need to just transition over to like
we can
a little
spend
bit
some
more
time on shoulders.
on shoulder. Right.
Yes. But yes, I mean, and we can't reiterate this enough. Don't just take these IG lives and then run with it. Reach out. These are a starting point on your journey to treating your body, right? These are little nuggets of information that we're dropping in, but there is a lot more to this, right? So don't just go to the YouTube channels and start doing, you know, 17 different exercises or mobility drills. Do the assessments, get somebody to look at them if you're not comfortable with how you've read your assessment, or if you can't figure out what the problem might be. We got eyeballs, we'll look at them. And then do the exercises, but make sure that you are being very, very, very conscious of how you're doing the exercises. They are not to just be, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I did IYTs, now I'm good to go. No, there's a process to these, and there are progressions and regressions to absolutely everything. And if you do too much too soon on the rehab exercises, it's just as bad as doing too much too soon on more complicated exercises, right? These things can fuck you up too, right? So we got to make sure that we don't just dive off the cliff from these IG lives. Reach out, please, please, please. There is more to it. Yes, you need help.
And what do you have going on now, Ty, about to start next month?
Yes, so the Focus program is going to be open April 5th, right? Waitlist gets first dibs. That opens up on the 21st. They can start buying this thing. And last time I went to the waitlist, so
and I was on that waitlist. I was like, get me in. I need to do this. Focus program is awesome, guys. I've been killing it. I love it. This is my first time doing online training. And I didn't know how I would feel about it, but I fucking love it.
It works. I love it. I love that you love it. You're one of my star students. I love it. People are getting really good results. And I do incorporate a lot of this stuff, right? This is 17 years worth of me just seeing people all fucked up. And I'm like, all right, well, there's a blanket way for me to address a lot of the common issues that keep popping up. And that's what I've thrown into this program is, okay, most people have this knee issue. Most people have this, or not most, but if you have knee issues, it's probably this. If you have shoulder issues, it's probably this. So let me just get that out of the way for you. Okay. So we need you to reach out. Next week, we are going to address the shoulder. It will look a lot similar to this, but the shoulder is very closely related to the hip. It is a ball and socket joint. There's a whole lot that can happen there. We could probably spend an hour and a half talking about that. We won't. But if you have shoulder issues, please reach out preemptively and send us questions, send us videos, send us things to talk about, right? We want your feedback. We want to be able to address the things that you need addressed. So reach out to both Dr. Arnika at Resilient Spine and me at Ty Training. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Doc.
Yes. Thank you, Ty. Bye.
Bye, guys.